Good evening, Kahnawake, and welcome to another update from the Public Health and Public Safety team, also formerly known as the Kahnawake COVID-19 Task Force. I'm here this evening just to give a brief update on where we're current status within the community and update you on some of the latest measures. So as of Monday, yesterday, we have officially entered the recovery phase of the pandemic. The state of emergency did end at midnight on Sunday, and which transfers into a recovery phase. We're very pleased at this point that we are once again in a recovery phase, and looking to continue down the path of reducing measures and continue with the goal of returning the community back to a state of normalcy as declared in the law, which basically we're going to bring us back to a point where we are substantially operating the same way we were prior to the pandemic. So again, things have been progressing quickly, as we all know, since just before Christmas, when the Omicron wave really hit us hard and hit us fast. And fortunately, things have been declining, not as fast as they hit us, but certainly on a very steady decline. And we've been seeing in other jurisdictions around the world, they have been reducing measures. And we've been looking at that very closely as well in Kahnawake. So as you know, we've been taking it in 2-week increments. Roughly 4 weeks ago, we started the process of reopening businesses at 50% capacity. We've seen that was operating effectively, and then in turn, 2 weeks later, went to 100% capacity. And again, once again, things are operating well. So we looked at the whole scenario of what's happening around us, and we're looking at the additional measures that could be modified or reduced. So well, tonight I'm also here to let the community know that effective next Monday, the proof of vaccination, or commonly known as the proof of or the passport for vaccination, will no longer be a legal requirement within Kahnawake on our bars, restaurants, and social clubs. So that will no longer apply in the context of a directive. However, in terms of recommendations to any business that may feel that it's important for their business to continue to have that in place, now that is something that we look to you as the business establishment and implement it if you see fit for your establishment, but there will no longer be a directive coming from public safety, public health, and or the task force, former task force, I should say. So we've been taking it in 2-week increments, and we felt that this was a point that we could remove that requirement. But it's also important to note that we're not removing this because all risk is gone. I mean, there still is a pandemic going around. Yes, things are much better. Things are heading in the right trajectories. But we have to know not to put fear in anybody. But the virus is still around us. It's still in the community. There are still some people with positive tests. So we got to be careful. And by taking away this measure, it's just one more step towards that normalcy. We must be careful, we must remain vigilant, and it's one more step, I guess, in the way, as people have been saying, learning to live with the virus, because that's something we're going to have to do for a significant period of time. And it doesn't necessarily mean recovery phase has to last for a significant number of time, but the new reality of our community is going to be that way, and new reality of the world that we live in is going to be that way for some time to come. Also, let you know that we are putting together a plan that's going to be implemented throughout the community for the recovery phase, but as well as addressing the impacts. The mental health impacts of the community has been hit hard. Economics, everybody's social well-being has been impacted in various ways. So there are going to be plans put forward and action items that would help us guide the community back to a normal state throughout the recovery, but also after the recovery, because it's more about healing. The healing of our community in the context of full recovery will take some time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the state of recovery has to last that long. So it's a balancing moving forward. We're taking significant steps here. But again, the responsibility is on individuals now to take what we have learned throughout these past couple of years and implement it appropriately, and assess your own personal level of risk on what you are comfortable with or without doing, and live your life accordingly. We will continue to provide updates as required to the community to address any updates that are significant to the community. And if there's need to give additional information, we will do more Facebook Lives as required. So with that, I'll be short and sweet tonight, and I'll turn it over to the Grand Chief.
With Kahnawà Kahnawake and Nyaukoa to Lloyd Phillips, Commissioner of Public Safety, for the announcement this evening. I'm sure this is long awaited for people in the community who hadn't been able to, enjoy the attendance of restaurants, social clubs, and the gaming establishments and any other place in the community that required the proof of vaccination. I do know that there's one area that is still under review, which is that of the Kahnawake Sports Complex, and the reason for that might be because of the rules for leagues. So we will definitely be coming with an update on that in the next little while. Excuse me, as Lloyd mentioned, the fact that yesterday the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake did sign an MCED basically declaring that we are now in a state of recovery. And what that entails is that for 120 days is typically the standard as prescribed in the law, that we will be working directly with public safety and public health in terms of any other necessary measures that might be needed. The task force ceased to exist on Sunday at midnight, but of course we still have professionals in the community that we will be engaging with. Lloyd mentioned the plan. We do have a strategic discussion at the council table tomorrow to look at what all of that entails, and basically as the transfer of decision making reverts back to Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, we're going to be working collaboratively and having meetings as needed and looking at all the things impacting the community. There are still a couple of outstanding, I'll say, directives in place. Vaccination mandates also for two organizations in the community, which is that still of KMHC and KSCS. And that is within their authority and their boards and their executive directors to make decisions on those matters as they see fit. Of course, it's still applying for any persons who work directly with vulnerable population, like those at the Elders Lodge or those in the long-term care of the hospital. So if there are going to be any changes that come into effect, that is going to be at the discretion of those two entities. And again, maybe an update will be forthcoming to the community, either from myself or Lloyd, or maybe any representatives from those organizations. I'm actually, really happy at this moment for our community that we're moving in this direction. I know it's been tumultuous 2 years. I've heard a lot of people say 3 years, 3 years. It seems like it's been 3 years. It's really, in essence, been 2. And again, just have to thank the community for the patience and the diligence and commitment to keeping our community safe and doing the best possible. And at this point, where it shifts is individual responsibility and us finding that, our risk tolerance and what we feel we could be comfortable with as individuals. I know there's still some people who will probably be fearful of this removal of the QR codes, vaccination passports, whatever you want to call it, 2 weeks ahead of Quebec, which, I'm very happy that we were able to come to this consensus, for our community, showing that we don't always follow what they do when they do. We felt it was time for us to move in this direction. And again, just because the state of recovery says 120 days doesn't mean that we have to stay in this for that duration of time. If we feel, in conjunction with public safety, public health, that as Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, we could declare state of normalcy, then that's what we'll do when the time comes. It could be April, it could be May. Like I said, I don't know. or if required, we can go beyond and extend after the June 20th, 2022 deadline. But this is, you know, the way it's stated in the law. And I have to remind the community that this law was never intended to be for a pandemic or a virus. It was intended to be for emergency response to, you know, something else, like things we don't want to envision happening in our community, like train derailment, natural disasters, ice storm. I know it's getting a little scary out there right now. Be careful if you're out on the roads. But we all remember what that was like in 1998. And I think that's where this law came into effect, so that we would have an emergency response, we would have food backup, we would have resources available to deploy. So although, you know, it's been, like I said, a pretty crazy 2 years for our community, I just have to, again, commend everybody for the role that, you know, we all played as individuals, as organizations, as the community of Kahnawake, and just happy that we're at this point where, you know, the QR codes and the vaccination passports will be removed for the areas described this evening. So with that, like Lloyd said, short and sweet, I felt it was important, again, to come forward and, you know, be a part of this this moment in mentioning this to the community. So with that, I hope everybody has a good evening, be safe, and we'll see you next time. Tony Wanage, Nyawa.